But for those who don't know you, just give the audience, tell them a bit about your background and what it is that you do.
All right. Well, give thanks. Well, over the years, I've always been very heavily involved in the community. Initially, a lot of my advocacy was in sports and around football, which is a passion of mine. And that evolved into getting into entertainment and culture and the arts. Since then, I've ventured into being involved with environmental concerns. I'm currently the chairman of the board of Green Rock, so many people know me for that as well. But primarily, I've always stood up for the underprivileged and underrepresented, and stood for many causes.
And you mentioned that during your press conference, people were a bit confused, right? They, we were having conversations in our group. Okay, is it a political party? Is it, what is it? Is it a group? Is it just independent? Speak to people, because when you came out, it's clear, it wasn't clear whether you were gonna jump into the political ring, but you did decide to throw your name in there. Why did you decide to run as a member of Emperial Group, but also in Constituency 33?
Okay. Well, I'm running as the Emperial Group because, we come with a sole purpose of looking to unify the combined opposition. And Emperial Group is a community organization that for decades has stood for unity. Our mantra is unity in the community, whereby fighting with peace and not for it. So essentially, I've come to the table as I am. I haven't come as something other than what people have known me for years, and that's important. And also, it was important for us to stand alone, right? Because in unifying, we can't be seen to be joined at the hip with any one particular side. So for me to come as a representative of the FDM, or for me even to run as an independent, it may suggest to others that we would be partial to one side or the other. So coming as I am, representing, all the work that my partners and I have done over the years, is we felt was the best platform, particularly because of the work that we have ahead.
What do you say to those comments from an individual who literally has been on every political side that there is? And it's not side because side's one or the other, but in every political space has the audacity to call you out in this regard.
Well, first I'll say thank you, because, basically, once again, the PLP is demonstrating what we've consistently said, and it's their incompetent leadership and their focus on character assassination rather than dealing with the pertinent issues. So even for him to bring up Michael Fahey and pathways to status, if anybody actually reads the statement that we made, it's not really about Michael Fahey and pathways to status. It's about the PLP's tendency to take issues and leverage them for political expediency whilst avoiding the critical issues that the country faces. And in this case, it's a shrinking workforce, and a declining economy. And the fact that, their approach to immigration has led to thousands of Bermudians leaving the country. But we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to vilify one individual, to rile up emotions and to rally people to support us at the polls. So is the PLP really interested, right, in the people, or are they really interested in just power? And that's what they continue to prove. So thank you, Jamel, for setting yet another example of what has consistently been demonstrated by the PLP leadership in recent years. Now, as it relates to a so-called secret alliance with the OBA and relationship with Sophia Cannoner, we have stated from day one, and I encourage everyone to go back and look at every statement we have released. We said that we are working with the combined opposition. That means we support, right, the OBA, we support the FDM, we support the independents. We support anyone who wishes to see the current administration removed. That is open. And also, I have personally had a relationship with Sophia Cannoner for over 25 years. That is no secret. And she is running in one of my partner's backyards And yes, he goes out and assists her with canvassing. Should we now turn our back on her because she has decided to accept an invitation from the OBA to run as a candidate? And how would that align with the principles that we've demonstrated our capacity to support over the years? We've always been open. We've always been about unity. And our involvement in this election is no exception to that.
Where do you believe the PLP government has gone wrong? And what do you believe a collective group, a coalition, can do to fix things?
Mm-hmm. Well, the PLP's leadership is the challenge. And I think this is the thing that is important for people to differentiate between. There are a lot of people that are attached or have a strong association with the PLP because of its history. This leadership is not a reflection of what the PLP was formed for. So when people are thinking that it's a betrayal to vote against the PLP, it's actually a betrayal to vote for this leadership, because this leadership has shown its incompetency primarily through broken promises. They have shown up around elections, touting all sorts of things that they're prepared to do. And this goes all the way back to the root. When the PLP came into power, they came into power off of the youth vote. And that youth vote was not generated by them. That youth vote was generated from some of my partners. Dred and Baja was registering 15 young people to every one that the PLP was. And they generated the movement in the youth community, people our age and younger, Jamel, right, who had hopes, high hopes and aspirations for a future of a PLP-led government. And immediately when they got into power, rather than working with the organizations that assisted them to come into power, they sought to cut the legs from beneath them. They turned their backs on them, and they turned their backs on our youth. So broken promises, right, and focusing on private interests rather than dealing with the key issues of the country have been the failings of this administration. They have not represented the people who have elected them. So what is the point of voting for someone to represent you when in the end of the day, they only represent their private interests and the interests of their party, right? What can, right, a coalition government do? A coalition government can bring to the table people who are primarily interested in supporting the people that they represent, the people in their constituency, right? And the people who share thoughts and ideals that they do, right? A coalition government can represent the diversity that Bermuda has right now today. And you can have honest, wholehearted people working on your behalf. They may not be experienced in politics, but somehow today, that seems to be a benefit because traditional politicians haven't lived up to the hype. So together, we can bring fresh ideas, creativity, alliances, collaboration that sets the tone for the country to start to work together. Imagine if we as a people all got behind a vision to unite and to put our best foot forward, right? How would that transform the country? That's what we're looking for, and that's what we're confident that the combined opposition can bring through a coalition government.
What are you hearing on the doorstep, Eugene? Because many people who've come on this show, they've had the opportunity to speak to constituents, and the constituents are very concerned. After this show, every day people are reaching out to me, and Jamel, I just don't get it. I'm struggling, and I don't know if this company leaves Bermuda, what I'll do. What are you hearing?
Well, I'll speak to one family that I went to see a few days ago, and they came to the door, and the husband had been laid off from his job. His wife wasn't working. And these are not, people without skills. These are very highly qualified people with decades of experience at their craft. And the thing that stood out to me the most is they said, the morale in this country is at the lowest point that I've ever seen. And that really just encapsulated the feeling that people have and the sentiment all through the country. It's become so evidently clear that everything is just in decline. The teachers came out the other day, expressing their concerns, and they're like, look, we need the minister removed. When you think about like all these special interest groups that are up in arms, when you think about like all the conversations, it's really disappointing to see. But at the doorstep, people are really confused because they don't know what to do. They don't see light at the end of the tunnel at the moment. They know that the government that we have is not up to scratch. And they're trying to figure out like how they navigate the current political reality, to bring a solution, something that can move us forward. And that's why the role that we're playing continues to get more and more important each and every day. And our team, we feel the weight of the responsibility because we literally, as I said before, have a choice. The combined opposition is powerful. There are 36 candidates for the OBA and 38 candidates outside of the OBA and the PLP. That's unprecedented. So what are we going to do with all that power? What are we going to do with all that strength? Are we going to get in each other's way and split votes? Or are we going to step away from tradition and set the example that the country needs to see? Unity, and move the country forward.
Charles H. Jefferson II, he says, if we had a combined opposition, there would only be 2 candidates in each constituency, the incumbent and one other. More than 2 is more advantageous to the incumbent. What are your thoughts on that? How some of the votes will cancel each other out and then leave us with what we have?
I couldn't agree with Charles Jefferson more. And our role is between now and the election to sort that situation out. Because the way we see it is that there's a cliff and everybody sees the cliff, right? But do we have the capacity to avoid it? And what I call the cliff is what happened in the last by-election when the PLP retained the seat in constituency 36 with 36% of the votes. 64% of the votes were against the PLP, and they won because those votes were split between the OBA, the FDM, and an independent. Short of us uniting, we will cancel each other out. That's the cliff. So the challenge, right, to everyone in the community, and this again, this is now you're getting into uncharted territory, because in an election, right, what's happened is that it's become a war and everyone is against everyone else. And we're saying that, right, in this instance, if we have a common enemy, then it's wise and in our best interest to unite. The people are relying on us to take advantage of this opportunity to bring change. And either we're going to be willing to do what Lauren Francis has demonstrated, sacrifice our own personal interests for the betterment of the country and its people, or we're going to find ourselves all with our tails between our legs, walking off sulking because we didn't take advantage of the opportunity at hand.
Nelia, Aruda says, how would you be able to unify together now if the nomination day has passed? Is it too late as election day is on Tuesday?
Well, actually, I'm glad that was brought up because it's not too late. And we've already done our research in that regard with the parliamentary registry. So everything is possible, and we're already deeply engaged in conversations, and it's challenging because it's a shift away from the norm. What we're finding though is as time goes on, the reality that we've brought to the fore from the very beginning of this election, is something that people have come in to really, really understand and appreciate. And as time evolves, more and more people are coming in alignment with what we have identified as being in the best interest of the country and its people.
But as someone who has dedicated themselves to social justice, involving the community in these spaces, speak to us about the unifying of Black males, young Black males in particular, because that's mainly who is being impacted by the violence and the carnage on our roads.
Yeah, what may be the case is that the current administration is unwilling to talk about these things because of they recognize the role that they've played in this unfolding. What's really disheartening to me is to know that a lot of the murders that happen across the island, they didn't need to happen. If you look on our website, you'll be able to develop an appreciation of where these murders came from. It all came from broken promises. Remember, I talked about the euphoria that people were feeling in '98 when young people were coming in droves to support the PLP to a historic victory. People had a lot of hope. People were inspired. People felt that they had wings and wind beneath them to fly. And as soon as the PLP got in power, they proceeded to break all the promises that they made. Rather than supporting the organizations that were managing the youths, right, that had influence over the youths, they cut the legs from beneath them. Those organizations started to disband. And all of a sudden, our young people weren't being managed. And next thing you know, we found ourselves with unprecedented violence. And the government was warned. I can tell you personally because I was in the meetings in cabinet. They were not listening, right? And then when they were told that you can't legislate yourself out of a social problem, they continued to put heavier and heavier legislation on the table, which further disenfranchised the relationship that we were attempting to build between the government and hardcore elements in this country. And it continued to get worse and worse and worse. And not once has anyone from the government stood up and taken responsibility for the role that they have played. So no wonder they're quiet. Because they don't want people to know the truth. But the truth is coming out.
Mr. Weeks, in his BYC interview and question on the effectiveness of the Gang Violence Reduction Task Force, said the proof is in the pudding and crime is down. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, again, these are the sound bites that come out from, PLP MPs in attempts. It's like somebody the other day telling me that the economy improved. Well, what are you comparing that improvement to? Are you suggesting that the community is back to the level it was prior to all the gang violence? Or are you talking about some incremental, right, decline that really makes no difference because the major issues have yet to be addressed? I would ask, what has been the effectiveness of these programs that is put in place? Our understanding is that hundreds of thousands of dollars have been poured into programs, whilst members of the Emperial Group, who have a proven track record with working with young people and hardcore elements in the country, have been shut out. We developed a program at the Roundabout Cottage, right? We were supported by the OBA administration with a building and a $50,000 grant. The OBA lost the election and the PLP came in power. And rather than supporting this program, where we had tradespeople in the area working with hardcore youth in Hamilton who came to us pleading that they needed to find a way to work in the city because they couldn't move to other areas of the island. What did the PLP do? Right? They demolished the building and revoked the grant. Some of the young people that came forward asking us to develop this program, and some of the tradesmen who were prepared, right, to teach those young people have now passed away to the same violence that they were looking to address. This is the incompetency, right? This is the shutting out of people that have proven their talent that has led to the decline that we're seeing in the country.
What would unity look like if we actually did get the breast 36 and that meant having 18 people from the PLP? Do you think, because you mentioned that it's really the leadership, right? So if you got the best 18, excluding the current leadership, do you think, Bermuda, we can achieve what we need to get this country where we believe it should be?
Well, definitely. I definitely feel, I mean, you know, I of course I have friends in the PLP. My family, like most other Black families on the island, have a history of supporting the PLP. So I have friends in the PLP, and there's some beautiful people in the PLP whose hearts are in the right places. And, you know, I can see the frustration on their faces, and I hear the frustrations in some conversations that I have with them, because they feel that they're being prevented from using their talents to really benefit the country in the way that they can. And that's all down to the current leadership. So I would say that the people of Bermuda are best positioned now to create the reality that you just defined. What would it look like if you had 36 candidates working together, making decisions based on feedback they get from their constituents, right? Skill and experience that they've garnered over the years to put policies and programs in place to move the country forward. What a beautiful sight that would be.